Before I get any further, I will organize a bit my node. So I will select all the nodes involved into the color of my character and frame them using the Node Wrangler option on the T panel. I will then give them a name and a color to make it easier to identify. In the node editor, I will then switch to layers and load a new texture from the texture.com folder, which is a wood texture that we'll use for the horns. So I will go into the UV image editor and open the viewer node to save this normalized map as we did before. I will then go back on my character, and in its material I will frame everything used to create the bump effect, and I will name it, and then I will duplicate this whole framed group of nodes and load instead the wood texture we just created. I can then Ctrl left shift click the RGB curve node to see the result of this wood texture. I will revise its size to something lower. And as we are using our UV coordinates, this wooden texture flows pretty well onto the horns of the character. I now need to create another 2K mask. So this will be the horn mask. And make sure I don't forget to save it. And I will load it into this image texture so that I can then paint onto it to isolate the horns. Once loaded, I will fill it with pure white using the fill brush in the UV image editor. And I should see my 3D view updating. So now all the horn pattern has disappeared, and I need to paint it in black to recover those details. So I will use the standard brush, set it to pure black with full strength, uncheck occlude, cool and normal so that I can paint through my model, go in side view, in orthographic and paint it. And now I can see my texture that is unmasked using this black color. In my material, I will Ctrl Shift click the last node, overlaying it with this horn pattern so that I can see the final result and paint on it. And I will finish this area. Once I'm done, I will go into the painting slots and click the Save All Images so that I'm sure I am saving all picture at once. I can now play a little bit with the curve to contrast it a little more. Then I will refine the painting of my mask. So as I can't cover the scalp area, we'll need to paint a secondary texture to fill this gap. I will create a new 8K texture called On Patch, and I will set its space color to a pure 0.5 gray. So I'll set it to all the RGB values. I will save this texture and then I will load it into the node editor by duplicating the existing image texture node, and then I will mix it by duplicating the mix RGB and set it to overlay with a 100% factor. I can now get back into texture paint mode, select our Dragon Knight on patch. Then in the tools, I will create a new texture. So I open the texture tab, click new, and I will open the properties panel, go into the texture option and select brush texture. I will give this texture a better name and then I will load our all normalized texture so that we can use it as a stencil to paint it and create our patch. Now that the texture is loaded, I will check my texture option and set it to stencil. So as the stencil option is enabled, whenever I will hover over my character, I will see this piece of texture appearing. I can move it by right-clicking, shift right-clicking and dragging to scale it, control right-clicking and dragging to make it rotating. I will rapidly update my node so that I can see the result. And I will paint in pure white so that the mask will be projected without any modification. If you paint with a color or with a darker color, it will be multiplied to the mask. So I want it to be as it is, so I paint in pure white. And now it will be a matter of blending this newly created texture with the existing on pattern. Once I'm done, I will duplicate this Mix RGB node, press Alt P to unframe it, and duplicate it again because I will have two mixing, one for the color and one for the bump map. So I'm just checking now all those are blending. So for the color it's done, but now I also need to work on my bump influence. So I will plug here my value for the skin and then the value for the horn, and I will overlay both together. As these two nodes are mixed with neutral gray, they will allow me to control the influence of both the skin pattern and the horn pattern. Then I just need to mix them with the color and then with the bump. So I've made some cleanup. I have both my skin and horn mix RGB here that are overlaid together. One is going into the bump and the other is overlaid with our base color.